and Jai Hind children. I welcome you all in today's live class of biology. Children, we are discussing the chapter reproduction in plants. Is it? So, before starting today's topic, I am going to demonstrate you the activity number 7 of biology. Alright? As this activity is the part of your activity syllabus, so you need to write it in your activity notebook. Okay children? Today I am going to demonstrate you the activity number 7 of biology. And the aim or objective of this activity is to show vegetative propagation in plants with the help of tuber, rhizome, bulb and leaf. Alright children, so this is the aim of our activity. As you know that the vegetative reproduction, a method of reproduction in which the plants produces the new plants with the help of their vegetative parts, not from reproductive parts. Alright, and such a method is known as vegetative reproduction. Understood children? So, the different parts of the plant like stems, root, leaf, they are used to produce the new plants. And the terms which are used like tuber, rhizome, bulb, they are the names of those parts of the plants which reproduces vegetatively. Alright, so the first we will take a tuber. Tuber is the stem, solen stem of the plant which store food, and this solen stem produces the new plants because it have the small birds or eyes on it, and those birds or eyes produce the new plant. So such structures are known as tubers, and the example of tuber is potato. Alright children, so here I have a potato. You can see that the different birds are present on its surface. When these birds are cut in small sizes and kept in soil, so they grow the new plant. Okay, so these structures are known as tubers, and the example of tubers are potato. Alright children? Now, the another structure is rhizome. Rhizome are also underground stems which are solid, and they store food and also produces the new plant. Alright, and the example of this rhizome is ginger. So here I have a piece of ginger, and on that piece of ginger you can observe the small birds or eyes. When they are get kept in soil, so the new plants produces from these birds or eyes. Alright children, so this structure is known as rhizome, as it is not similar as the potato. So we will not use the term tuber because tuber is a solid structure, and this structure is somewhat another kind. Okay, it have number of branches, and the different branches are having the birds on it. So we will use the term rhizome for it. Alright children? Now the third vegetative reproduction that takes place from the stem, and the structure is known as bulb. Bulb are also the solen part of the stems which are present underground inside the solen and produces the new plants. And the example of the bulb is onion. So here I have a onion. You can observe very clearly the green part which are going to arrive from it. Actually it is a new plant. When this onion get kept inside the soil, so the new plant grow from this. Okay, so this structure, this solid structure is known as bulb, and the example of the bulb is onion. Alright children, now in some plants the leaves are also used to produce the new plants. Okay, so the leaf also reproduce vegetatively and produces the plant, and the example is bryophyllum plant. So in bryophyllum plant their leaves are used to produce new plants, and here I have a bryophyllum leaf, and on the margins of this leaf the new plants are present, the baby plants are present. As these plants or this leaf get falls on the soil, so these all plants, new baby plants gets grow, all right, and produces the new plant. So in bryophyllum plant the new plant produces from the leaves. The margins of the leaf have small buds, and these buds produces the new plant. As you can see here in this bryophyllum leaf, we have the small plants present on its margin. Alright children, so this is also an example of vegetative reproduction in plants that takes place from the leaf part, because leaf is also a vegetative part. Alright children, so this one is our activity number 7, in which we have seen that the different vegetative parts of the plants are produces the new plant, and the structures of these parts are also different as tuber, bulb, rhizome and all. Okay, so I hope that you understood this activity. In previous class, I have started the topic sexual reproduction. Is it children? And now today I am going to start the topic sexual reproduction in plants. Okay. Sexual reproduction in plants. Children, in flowering plants, that flowers are the reproductive organs. Is it? And some flowers like rose and sweet pea, they contain both male and female reproductive organs. Alright? And they are called the hermaphrodite or complete flowers, or they are also known as bisexual flowers. Is it? So such flowers, those who have both reproductive organs, male and female, they are known as hermaphrodite. Is it? And such flowers are known as complete flowers or bisexual flowers. Clear? Now the complete flowers, they have the stamens, pistils and sepals. Clear? So you can say that the part of the complete flowers are stamens and pistil, petals and sepals. Alright, so these are the parts of complete flowers. The first part is stamen, second part is pistil, third part is petals, and the fourth part is sepals. Alright, now the other flowers like corn and papaya, They contain only male or only female reproductive organs. Okay? And that is why they are known as incomplete flowers or unisexual flowers. Alright, children? So, incomplete flowers are unisexual flowers. The flowers who contain only male or only female reproductive organs. Clear? And the examples are corn, papaya, etc. And the example of this complete flower are bisexual flowers are rose, hibiscus, etc. Alright. Now, as the stamens, they produce pollen grains, a yellow color powdery like substance produced by the stamens, and they are known as pollen grains. Clear? So, these pollen grains contains the male reproductive cells, and these are surrounded by a tough protective coat which saves them from drying out, and the ovule which are present in the ovary in the lower part of the pistil, and this ovary contains the female egg cell. Alright, children. Now I'm going to explain these all parts of a flower with the help of a diagram. So this is the internal structure of a flower, and this flower is a bisexual flower. Already written. Now these structures are petals. So these are the different parts of the flowers. Children, see that petals, they are colorful parts. Okay, they are red, white, yellow in different flowers and known as petals. Below the petals, a green color small leaf-like structure is there, and these green leaf-like structures are known as sepals. All right. The sepals is attached with the pedicles. So pedicle is a base on which sepals and petals they are present. Inside that, in the center, this is the thalamus on which this ovary is situated. So this solid structure is known as ovary. And inside the ovary, the ovules are present. The many dark structures, these are the ovules. This thread-like structure, which is present on the ovary, is style. And at the top of the style, it is a broad structure which is known as stigma. And these all together, stigma, style, ovule and ovary, they together known as carpel, are the female reproductive part of a flower. Okay, children? So this one is the carpel or female reproductive part. Now, this thin thread-like structure is filament, and filament have the anthers. Inside the anthers, many small yellowish powdery substance is present, that is pollen grains, and together this anther and filament forms the stamen. Okay, and the stamens are the male reproductive part of a flower. So this one is the male reproductive part of flower and this one is female reproductive part of flower. And this is why this flower is a, yes, bisexual flower or complete flower, because it have both the reproductive parts. Okay, alright. So these all are the different parts of a flower. Understood, children? Now, after that, come to the next step of this process of formation of seed, and the first step which involve in it is pollination. Pollination. Children, for fertilization to occur, the pollen grains must first be transferred from the stamens to the stigma of the pistil. Alright, and this process of transference of pollen grains from the anthers to the stigma is called pollination. Alright, what this process is called? It is called pollination. And the pollen grains are carried to the stigma of either the same flower, that is known as self-pollination, or of a different flowers of the same kind. So that will known as cross-pollination. Alright, children. So there are two kinds of pollination is observed: self-pollination and cross-pollination. Alright. In self-pollination, the pollen grains of the same flower transfer to the stigma of the same flower. Get it? For example, the pollen grains present here on the anthers, so they will move from anther to stigma of the same flower. So this transfer of pollen grain of same flower is known as self-pollination. Alright? And if this transfer of pollen grain will occur from the one flower to the another flowers, the stigma of another flowers of same kind. So such a pollination will termed as cross pollination. Clear, children? This is the example of self pollination and this is the example of cross pollination. Alright. Now, most often this pollination occurs with the help of wind, water and insects. So these are the three agents by which the pollination process takes place. The first one is wind, second one is water and the third one insects. Alright. So one by one we will discuss about these pollination. So come to the first, insect pollination. Now, the insects, birds and other animals, they help in cross-pollination of flowers. And the insects are attracted by colors and scent of the petals because the petals of the flowers are colorful and they have the different smell. Alright, so the insects attracted because of such color and scent and they collect the nectar from flowers. Children, you know the nectar, that a kind of sweet liquid which is usually present at the base of flowers. Get it? So for sucking this nectar, collecting this nectar, the insects attract to the flowers. And the pollen grains which are present on the anther, they stuck on the insect's body and the grains gets rubbed off when the insects visit other flowers to collect the nectar, and in such a way the pollen grains gets transferred from one flower to another flower and help in cross pollination. Alright children, now the second way is wind pollination. In wind pollination, yes, also the pollen grains transfer from one flower to other flower, the stigma of other flower with the help of wind. Alright, and this happens mostly in the plants which have flowers with small petals or with no petals at all. Okay, so that is why no insects visit to them because they do not produce nectar. And this is why the pollination takes place by wind. Understood, children? And in the absence of large petals, the anthers and the pestils, they remains exposed to the wind and making wind pollination easier. Get it? And the examples are corn, wheat and grasses. They all are the examples in which the wind pollination takes place. Clear? Or you can say that these plants depend on wind pollination. Okay? Now, come to the next process, and the next process is fertilization. Children, when the pollen grains transfer from anther to stigma, Okay, then the stigma of each flower secretes a liquid which containing sugar. Okay, and the pollen grains respond to this liquid and start growing. However, the pollen grains start growing only if the liquid is produced by a flower of its own species. Alright, not from other species. So you can say that the pollination occurs or the fertilization occurs only when the pollen grains of one species transfer to the stigma of same species. Get it? And they do not grow if they land on the stigma of a flower of different species. Clear? So, after the pollination, a thin tube, which is called the pollen tube, grows down from the pollen grains through the pistil, and the pollen tubes carries the male cell, and it grows until it reaches the ovules and enters in it, and the male cells removes into the ovule and fuses with the eggs to form the zygote. Get it? And you can understand this process with the help of this diagram. Now, these structures are the pollen grains. This broad part is stigma. The pollen grain germinates to form a tube-like structure which is known as pollen tube. Okay, so this is the structure by which you can understand the process of fertilization. The pollen grains settles on the stigma of, yes, flowers. There they start germinating and form the tube which is known as pollen tube. The pollen tube enters in the ovary and finally reaches the ovule. Get it? Inside the ovule, egg cell is there, and the cell releases here and both the cells get fuses together. Get it? And after the fusion of this ovule with the male cell, zygote forms. Get it? And this zygote then help in the formation of seed. Alright children? So the next step is seed formation. So after the formation of this zygote, the petals, sepals and the stamens, they wither away and fall off. Okay, and often the style and the stigma, they also fall off and only the ovary remains. The ovules in the ovary contains a supply of food and the zygote takes in this food and begins to grow by cell division. Okay children, and in sometimes it becomes an embryo, and meanwhile the wall of the ovules, they develop hard layers and form the seed. Get it? So this wall of this ovule form the seed. Okay, clear? Now thus the seed consists of a young plant with stored food which is sealed within a hard layer. Okay, so this is the process of formation of seed after the fertilization. Alright, understood? Now when the seed formed inside the ovary, the fruit formation occurs. So the next step is fruit formation. Clear? First the pollination takes place, then fertilization occurs, seed form and then fruit form. So as the seeds form, the ovary begins to swell. In time, it becomes a fruit. Get it? This ovule forms the seed and this ovary forms the fruit. So a fruit is actually a developed ovary. And some fruits such as mangoes and apples, they are sweet and juicy. And some fruits such as almonds and walnuts, they are hard. Is it? And a fruit can have one or more seeds inside it. Get it? So the fruit formation occurs after the formation of zygote when the seed form. Get it children? Understood the formation of fruit. Alright. So I hope that you understood these topics. Thank you and have a nice day children.